Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Bodker, Assistant Chief with Columbus Division of Police. I'm joined today by Commander Mark Denner from the Homicide Unit, Detective Chuck Radich from our Missing Persons Unit, Detective Lowell Titus from our Homicide Unit, and also Deputy Chief Smith Weir from our Criminal Investigation Subdivision. In the back, we also have some homicide folks that have taken part in this case. Sergeant Eric Pilia, Sergeant Scott Leroy, Lieutenant Wade Spears, and I think that's all we have in the back there. We appreciate you joining us today for an update on the Renee Benedetti case that was originally being investigated as a missing persons case. It was led by Detective Radich. As the investigation progressed, you will hear that it evolved into a homicide case. The collaborative investigation was led by Detective Titus in conjunction with Detective Radich. And before Commander Denner takes my place at the podium to provide limited details about this case, I'd like to remind everyone in the room and everyone watching that this is an ongoing, active homicide investigation. Our work is far from over, and because of that, there will be details that we are unable to share today. Thank you, Commander Denner.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Assistant Chief Bodker said, my name is Commander Mark Denner. I'm the commander of the Homicide Bureau. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through a timeline of the events that have occurred. And then afterwards, feel free to ask any questions you want. As Assistant Chief Bodker said, there are some things that we just won't be able to talk about. Again, you can ask whatever you'd like, and we'll try to either get you those answers at some point if I can't answer those today. So just to begin, where this all started, on January 31st, 2023, the Cleveland Police Department had reached out to the Columbus Division of Police about a possible homicide that had occurred. The individuals involved were Gene Scott Jr. and Renee Benedetti. As we started to look into this investigation or this report, we were not able to initially confirm that a homicide had occurred or that even occurred in Columbus, Ohio. But what we were able to confirm is that Renee had been seen in Columbus on the 26th, January 26th. And so what we initially did was we completed a missing persons report. We sent out an endangered missing media release. And we also entered her information into leads, so if anybody did come across her, we would be able to locate her and find out what took place and start with the investigation. Approximately 18 hours later, we were able to locate Gene Scott Jr. down in Kentucky. He was taken into custody and he was charged with weapons under disability. And in essence, what that is an individual is prohibited from having a firearm, owning, possessing, of that nature. He remained in custody in Kentucky. Several days later, he was extradited back here to Columbus, Ohio. Once he was back here, again, we started the investigation, or we continued the investigation and learned more details. And the details that we learned led us to an area down in southern Ohio, which is where we had the understanding that Renee's body had been placed in a dumpster. Continued investigation and more details led us to the Rumpke landfill in Georgetown, Ohio. When we learned that information, we were able to partner with the Rumpke organization, and we started our search on February 20th, 2023, and that lasted just about 2.5 weeks, where yesterday, March 8th, 2023, we ended up locating an individual. We worked with the Brown County Sheriff's Office, the Brown County Fire Department, the Coroner's Office. The individual that we located was pronounced, and we turned custody over to the Brown County Coroner, where they could go through their process and help with the investigation. Today, I'm able to confirm that the individual we located was Renee Benedetti. We ended up making notifications to her family so they could understand where we were at with the process and give them time to understand before we ended up talking to everyone here and announcing. Charges have been filed against Gene Scott, 1 count of murder against Renee Benedetti. And I think it's important, again, to just understand and circle back that, we're glad that we have progressed this investigation to where we are at. but this is just one step in the process. We still have a long way to go as far as the judicial system, and we have to make sure that we see this to the end. So we have done our due diligence and we have done our job. I think it's very important to recognize the people that played a role in this, and Assistant Chief Bodker recognized the two detectives you see standing behind me. There's another detective, Jeremy Niederkor, who's not here with us. The support of the Sergeant Eric Pilia, Sergeant Scott Leroy, Lieutenant Truax, who's not here, and Lieutenant Wade Spears, and the whole chain of command. It's also important to recognize that there were many law enforcement agencies who assisted us throughout the state of Ohio, and if we don't recognize them, we're not doing our part. There's also a volunteer group, Land SNR, Search and Rescue, and they were with us throughout this, which is a credit to them for being willing to partner with us and help bring Renee back and locate her. And then lastly, the Rumpke organization. That's a tremendous organization. I'm very proud that we were able to work with them, and I can't thank them enough for the support and the resources that they provided so we could find Renee. So with all that information, I will open it up for any questions for you guys, and we'll see what we can answer.
Do we know the relationship between the two people at all yet?
So our understanding is that there was a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship.
He drove her to that dump that we were at yesterday, correct?
Say that again.
You said he drove her to that dump, the landfill we were at yesterday, correct?
So what I will just tell you as part of the investigation, and those were the parts I was speaking of, is the way she was transported, how, all that stuff, that will come out as the investigation continues.
The federal court records for his federal charge show that a search warrant was executed at their apartment on February 1st. Can you talk about what you found there and what you may have found that indicated that this was now a death investigation versus just a missing persons investigation?
Yeah, Bethany, good question. The parts of the search warrant or anything of that nature will come out at some point, and I can't go into those specifics. The second part you were asking about, repeat the last part.
What you found there in terms of, I believe there are multiple firearms.
Yeah, you talked about why this became a death investigation. Yeah. So as I go back, or if we go back to the beginning when I was talking about it was reported initially as a homicide investigation, we had to work through some of those to determine, one, did that occur? And then did that happen in Columbus? I think once we're looking that at some point if we were able, if the worst case scenario, if Renee had lost her life and we were able to determine that was in Columbus, then we wanted to make sure that we had done our due diligence to investigate that. But at the time being, it was just the missing part is where we were at with the part of the intention that it may get to a homicide investigation. But the details, I just can't go into that just yet.
And has he been cooperative with you guys? It seems like he may have provided some information that helped you locate Renee. Has he continued to be cooperative with the investigation thus far?
So what I can tell you right now, Bethany, is that he is in custody right now. He does have an attorney, but right now the facts and anything that would have been contained in the interview is something that we'll leave to the prosecutors and the court system.
Is there any indication that he may have acted with someone else or that he acted alone, or is that still to be determined in the investigation?
So right now we believe just him, and also we don't have any reason to believe that there's any threats to the society, to other community members, society, anything like that. So I feel like we're on the right track in that regard.
Rumpke had told us that you were actually just focusing on one section of that huge landfill. How did you check that one section of that huge landfill?
Yeah, so, the Rumpke organization, let me start with that, is a tremendous organization. I think they are very precise on how they do their organization, how they take care of the trash and the recycling and stuff down there. But I would just say that us working through them, we were able to collaborate together and work together to kind of take an area down there and focus our search in that area. And again, I go back to it was about 2.5 weeks that we searched that area, and luckily within 2.5 weeks, kind of bittersweet, we were able to locate her.
They indicated that a truck brought it in from another location. Can you tell us where that location was that got the remains and brought it to the landfill?
Yeah, Steve, at this point, no, but we could circle back to that down the road.
Were they both from Columbus?
Where they were, what we know is that they had a residence here, which is why we started to look into it. But where they're from is not something at this point that we'll go into.
What's next in the investigation? You said it's an ongoing investigation. What are some of the next steps you're going to follow?
Sure, and I think that's the part that community members, just society, the media, everybody wants to know what's the next step, and that's why when I talked about there's a process, and we get the information, we start looking into it, we investigate. If we can establish probable cause, we'll make the charges, arrest somebody. But then there's the whole other part of the court system. And if we provide everything and we just lay it out, or we don't go in a precise manner, then that could end up causing problems for the prosecutors, the judges, and I don't think we would be doing a service to the family or to Renee if we do that. So I know it seems like we're not providing a lot of information, but there's a reason behind that.
Are you able to say if Gene Scott had a history, a criminal history, or a history of domestic violence in the past?
At this time, no.
We'd heard from a family friend that there may have been some allegations of domestic violence in the relationship between them, maybe not necessarily reported to Columbus police.
Yeah.
Do you know if there was a history between them? There were allegations that she may have been abusive towards him.
Yeah,
Is there anything you can comment on that?
No, so there's a lot that's of the investigation. Right now, for our purposes, there's not a whole lot from the Columbus Division Police that we have from our side. There may be other stuff that we either will look into or be part of that, but nothing that I could share at this point.
So this literally started with a call to a suburban police agency near Cleveland, and do you know who that is? Is it a relative, family who called and said, hey, we believe this gentleman killed his girlfriend, driving around in a truck? Is that how it all started?
Yeah, so we have information, I think, to protect for that part, at least the initial part of the investigation. We can just say that it was reported, and then it came down to us, and once we became aware of that, we took immediate action and started to look into that and investigate and determine what was the proper course of action, which then led us to the initial missing and then now into a homicide investigation.
That's Cleveland, Ohio, correct?
That is correct.
And in the court records, it mentions a heated argument before. Are you able to give any more details about, it says here that it took place at their apartment or anything else around those lines?
Right now, that's just one of the many parts I won't be able to comment right now. But again, sometime down the road, maybe we can circle back to that.
Do you know how she was killed?
So, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but that part, and again, these are all great questions. But part of that, the coroner is still, the autopsy was done, and again, I think that's part of the stuff that should come out in the investigation part.
The charging documents mentioned that he pretty much strangled her. She was motionless and fell to the floor.
What I can tell you is that yeah, she was murdered. She was pronounced, and we are investigating, and charges have been filed.
All right, guys, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sure.